Red Badge of Courage, Chapter 21. When the masses of the enemy again began to come from the forest, the youth felt great self-confidence. Hey, he's been called a hero. He stood tall and calm, watching the attack begin against a part of the line that made a blue curve along the side of a nearby hill. His view was not hidden by smoke, so he had an opportunity to see parts of the hard fight. A short distance away, he saw two regiments fighting a separate little battle with two other regiments. The battle had a set-apart look. The firing was unbelievably fierce and rapid. Apparently, these busy regiments were occupied completely in this battle. In another direction, he saw a magnificent brigade marching with the intention of driving the enemy from this part of the forest. They passed from sight, and soon there was a mighty noise in the forest. The brigade, after a little time, came marching out again, in no way divided. The battle between the four regiments lasted for some time. Then the gray-colored regiments moved back, leaving the blue lines shouting. The youth could see two flags shaking with laughter in the middle of the remaining smoke. That's personification, right? The flags are just being held, and maybe the people holding them are waving them, but they're being characterized as shaking with laughter. Happy because they won a victory, it seems. Finally, there was a stillness deep with meaning. The blue line stared expectantly at the silent forests and fields before them. The youth's regiment came forth with a new fierceness when it was time again to fight. The men burst out in angry pain at the first scatter of bullets. They bent their heads in hatred behind their guns. The eager arms unceasingly loaded the rifles. The front of the regiment was a wall of smoke, broken by flashing points of yellow and red. A strong section of the enemy line came within dangerous distance. They could see plainly tall men with excited faces running toward a fence. At the sight of this danger, the men suddenly ceased their talking. There was an instant of silence before they raised their rifles and fired, but the enemy was quick to gain the protection of the fence. They slipped down behind it with remarkable ease, and from this position they began carefully to shoot the blue men. The youth was determined not to move, no matter what might happen, meaning he won't retreat. Blue figures began to drop. I need to stop touching that. Blue figures began to drop. Some fell down at the feet of their companions. Others, wounded, moved away, but many still lay, their bodies turned into impossible shapes. The youth looked around for his friend. He saw him. The lieutenant also was in his position in the rear. He continued to curse, but it was with a voice rapidly growing weak. The colonel came running along behind the line. There were other officers following him. "We must attack," they shouted. "We must attack." They had strained voices as if expecting a refusal by the men. The youth, upon hearing the shouts, began to study the distance between him and the enemy. He made a guess. He saw that to be firm soldiers they must go forward. It would be death to stay in the present place. Their hope was to push the enemy away from the fence. He expected that his companions would have to be forced to make this attack, but as he turned toward them, he saw that they were giving quick and unquestioning expressions of approval. At the words of the commander, the soldiers began to push forward in eager leaps. There was new unexpected force in the movement of the regiment. It was a blind and despairing rush by the men in dusty blue over the grass and under a bright sky toward a fence. From behind it spoke the fierce guns of the enemy. So we're going to be moving on to the last chapter here. They've decided to attack against the odds, against a fence. Otherwise, they're all going to die. So again, the bravery of Henry being called into question as he feels with the flag he has to lead this assault.